Over the Garden Wall, an animated miniseries that follows two brothers, Wirt and Greg, making their way through a mysterious forest called the Unknown in the hopes to get back home. Now, since Halloween is upon us, I figured that I would get into the spirit of the season by breaking down this wonderful miniseries. Seriously, the show is like the mystery of Gravity Falls meets the spookiness and creepiness of Courage the Cowardly Dog with fall slapped on top, just fall everywhere. So if you too want to get into the spirit of Halloween, then you should be watching Over the Garden Wall, and here's why. Originally based off an animated short called The Tome of the Unknown, released in 2013, Cartoon Network approached Patrick McHale after his work on The Marvelous Misadventures of Flapjack and Adventure Time if he would be interested in turning his short into a miniseries. Production for the show began in March of 2014, and all 10 episodes aired from November 4th to November 7th. The miniseries was met with immediate praise and eventually won an Emmy in 2015 for Outstanding Animated Program, beating Archer, Bob's Burgers, South Park, and The Simpsons. Despite only being 10 episodes, the show manages to fully develop its characters and stories that leaves the viewer satisfied to the point where it seems like you may have watched a full season of 24 episodes rather than only 10. So let's take a look at the characters and story of Over the Garden Wall. As I said in the very beginning of this video, Over the Garden Wall follows two brothers, Wirt and Greg, who are voiced by Elijah Wood and Colin Dean respectively. Additionally, you also have Beatrice, a talking bird, who helps Wirt and Greg along their journey, who is voiced by Melanie Linsky. And you also have the Woodsman, a mysterious man who wanders the unknown, who is voiced by Christopher Lloyd. Now, since this is a mini-series, these will be your four main characters that you will spend the most time with, but rest assured that there are plenty of other interesting characters that you will meet along the way, like pumpkin people, a school full of animal children, a talking horse, frogs, whatever this is, and but the heart of the show is definitely the relationship between Wirt and Greg. Even though the show is only 10 episodes, you can see the development of their relationship from the first episode to the last. But that doesn't mean that their relationship is all sunshine and rainbows. There are times when the two will fight and argue with each other, but at the end of the day, you can see how much they care for one another. Overall, it's a good portrayal of a sibling relationship. But outside of our two brothers, we also have Beatrice, who acts as a guide through the unknown to Wirt and Greg. Beatrice is a character that adds sass and sarcasm to the trio. Wirt is the more reserved, cautious, and mature of the group, while Greg is the kind, imaginative, and naive one. So Beatrice getting added to the mix offers a lot of interesting group dynamics. Additionally, Beatrice is a character who is rather reluctant to help Greg and Wirt, but slowly grows attached to them the longer she accompanies them on their adventure. Lastly, we have the Woodsman. Now, the Woodsman has some pretty heavy spoilers in terms of his character development, so I'll try to keep this as spoiler-free as possible. But the Woodsman is someone who has a mysterious and tortured past, and throughout the show we can see him conflicted between his own personal interests versus the interests of others, and how acting on those interests will label him as a good or evil person. It's definitely one of the more complex developments in the show, but it makes it all the more intriguing. So now on to story. In the very beginning of this video, I compared Over the Garden Wall to Gravity Falls, and I feel a lot of that comes from the mystery of the show. In Over the Garden Wall, it's find a way out of the unknown and get home. In Gravity Falls, it's find out who the author of the journal is. But it's the journey to reach those end goals that make up the story, and for both, it's the mysteries, twists, turns, strange characters, and more that make the stories so memorable. With Over the Garden Wall specifically, it's traveling through this strange forest and learning more about the people and creatures who inhabit it, and solving the mystery of how all these inhabitants are connected to each other in the hopes of finding a way out of the unknown. It really is a show that focuses a lot more on the world building to guide its story rather than the characters, but in the best of ways. It's kinda similar to how I feel about the world building in Hilda, and I also made a video very similar to this one on Hilda, so go check it out, give it a watch, or don't, that's cool too. But you want to know what else Over the Garden Wall and Hilda have in common? Great animation. When I said that Over the Garden Wall was like Gravity Falls meets Courage the Cowardly Dog with fall just everywhere, I meant it. The colors of the backgrounds just scream fall. Despite the colors being mainly grays and browns with splashes of yellow and orange, the scenes still look incredibly beautiful and alive. Nick Cross did most of the art on this show, and there's even a video on YouTube of him painting a background for the show, so I'll leave that linked in the description box below for you guys to check out if you want. Outside of the backgrounds and colors, the overall art style is very appealing and definitely reminds me a lot of Flapjack, which makes sense, because the creator worked on Flapjack before. The art style is pretty simple, but this allows for a lot of different designs of various characters that you meet throughout the show. Besides the great use of color and character designs though, you also get some great animation. The animation is very smooth and expressive. Additionally, there are also some different styles of animation used within the show. The most well-known probably being rotoscoping used during the Highwayman scene, and I'll leave a link in the description below if you want to check it out for yourself, but essentially an actor was filmed doing the dancing and then was animated over to create a unique form of movement that is different from anything else in the show. It's things like that that truly make Over the Garden Wall so unique. Lastly, I'll be talking about the music of the show. Overall, the sound features a lot of piano, strings, and brass. While it may seem pretty limited, there is a wide range of tones and styles that are pulled off. The piano usually gives off an old-timey feel to it, which works well with the setting. But the piano is also worked into more ragtime or old-school jazz-sounding songs. The strings work in many ways as well. There are songs that use violins in beautiful scenic pastures, or violins that can be used to create a creepy, mysterious atmosphere while walking into the unknown. The brass also plays a variety of roles. Since ragtime and old school jazz are occasionally used in the soundtrack, you get some nice upbeat songs that use the brass section. But there are also slow songs where the brass adds a sense of heaviness to the atmosphere. All in all though, the score is simply wonderful and perfectly captures a 19th century to 20th century feel, but adding a little bit more of a modern sound to it. Additionally, there are songs with characters that sing. Yes, who would have thought in a show with creepy pumpkin people and various monsters that there would be musical numbers? The songs also range from happy and upbeat, to laments, to quite emotional ones. So there are plenty of songs in here that you'll enjoy. Even though the show aired almost 4 years ago, I still find myself humming songs from the show. But with all of that out of the way, why should you be watching Over the Garden Wall? Well, with the leaves starting to change colors and Halloween around the corner, Over the Garden Wall is the perfect show to get you into the spirit of the season. And while this show does make a great must-watch every year when fall rolls around, it is much more than that. For a miniseries that only had 10 episodes in it, it manages to excel in every aspect. Fun yet flawed characters, a great setting, an atmosphere, a lingering mystery, and a wonderful soundtrack. Despite me watching this miniseries every year since it first released, I always find myself enjoying it just as much when I first watched it. There's a certain charm that it has that lets the viewer get immersed in the world every time, but never gets old. So, if you're ever in the mood for a little spookiness in your life, then I hope you'll watch Over the Garden Wall, which is always a treat to watch, even outside of the trick-or-treating season.